So, Xbox has been going through a lot. Lots of people are losing their jobs. Studios are being shut down. Like, for example, Turn 10 losing 50% of their staff, effectively killing the Forza Motorsport franchise. Yes, Horizon will still stick around, but Motorsport as a franchise is now completely dead. And in addition to that, it seems like people within Xbox are really starting to speak out. More specifically, founder of Dishonored and Brave studio Arcane slams Game Pass, saying, "Why is no one talking about the elephant in the room?" So, hot on the heels of the layoff that swept Xbox, the founder of Microsoft-owned Arcane Studios has hit out at Game Pass, keeping in mind that Arcane is under Bethesda, and that's when, Xbox happened to have them be there as well. Basically, he said that the subscription model he called unsustainable, basically. So, Rafael Colantonio, who is the founder of, he founded Dishonored and Prey developer, and is now was the president before leaving in 2017 to start Weird West Maker Wolf Eye Studio. And keeping in mind, Weird West is actually a really good game. I think a lot of people don't give this game enough credit because it's a reminder of how games used to be during the late PS2, early PS3 generation, when games were really fun, generally out of the ordinary, and just a great bloody time. Now, keeping in mind that Weird West did actually launch on Game Pass, but also it's a pretty mixed bag in terms of how Game Pass works for indie developers versus AAA developers. Some are going to be helped, some are going to be hurt, but especially when we look at something like Microsoft and how big they've gotten, especially with what they've purchased, if the model is not sustainable for Microsoft's owned studios, like the studios that they have under the umbrella, if Game Pass does not benefit them, then they are completely losing everything, and everything is going to collapse as far as Xbox goes. So, when asked to expand his thoughts on Game Pass, which Weird West launched straight into day one as a title into March 2022, Colantonio said, "I think Game Pass is an unsustainable model that has been increasingly damaging the industry for a decade." Now, this can be seen in a few different ways in terms of damaging the industry. One thing that I would say is it's definitely damaging a customer's point of view as to what value games have, because basically the idea of why would I buy this game when I can wait for it to come to Game Pass is a hurtful mentality, and I think that the way in which PlayStation has been doing their subscription is significantly better. Rather than devaluing what franchises and games come to the service, they should be released for a period of time and then eventually come to the service at some point 1 to 2 years later on down the line, if at all. There should be no guarantee that the game is going to drop on the service. And when it comes to these sorts of services, these subscriptions rather, I think people should only jump in for the month in which they're playing games that they're interested in. So, like, say for example, if like 3 games jump in a month where I'm interested in those 3 games that I don't have, I could just jump in and play those games for 1 month and then hop out the next. You know, like, people should be able to just do stuff like that. But basically, they've mostly been subsidized. So the games jumping into Game Pass, especially the Microsoft first party stuff, has been subsidized by Microsoft's infinite money, but at some point reality's got to hit. I don't think Game Pass can coexist with other models. They'll either kill everyone else or give up, and that's very true. Why on earth would you buy a game if a game is going to come to Game Pass? But if Game Pass, so either Game Pass needs to exist as the sole way in which to play games on Microsoft's platforms, or God forbid, Game Pass dies and people have to go back to the way in which they've been buying and playing games before, ultimately losing access to all subscription services and dropping the service altogether. Which, like I said, as I can't stress enough, I think PlayStation has done it so much better comparatively speaking. Colantonio's comments sparked a voracious debate about the pros and cons of Game Pass in the industry, as well as for the customer. But the thing is that it's the best thing for the customer, it sucks for everyone else involved. Microsoft's subscription service has been called many things over the years: the death of the video game industry, the savior of smaller developers who benefit greatly from payments made by Microsoft to secure their games, and everything in between. During the great Xbox FTC trial, jeez, that's something. Ooh boy. PlayStation boss Jim Ryan claimed that he talked to all the publishers and that unanimously said that they all hated Game Pass because it is value destructive. He also said Microsoft appears to be losing a lot of money on it. Back in 2021, Xbox boss Phil Spencer countered Game Pass doomsayer, saying, "I know there's a lot of people that like to write that we're burning cash right now for some future pot of gold at the end. No, Game Pass is very, very sustainable right now as it sits, and it continues to grow. But it depends on who it's supposed to be sustainable for. Ultimately, it should be sustainable for Microsoft. But if that were the case, where are all of these drops coming from? Like, why are you letting go of so many people from Xbox? Why are so many studios going to stop developing games? Why are some franchises like Forza Motorsport completely dead now? Why did a game like Hi-Fi Rush, which was supposedly so successful that the developer was going to get shut down? What the heck is going on?" That was 4 years ago, of course, but what about now? In the wake of cuts that have been seen, Res Everwild, the Perfect Dark reboot, and an announced MMO in the works at developer behind Elder Scrolls Online, all cancelled basically. So that's a very good point. Why are all these games being cancelled if it's actually doing really well? And of course, Cole Antonio's comments were also, or rather the dude who basically was part of Arcane and one of the leads of it, commented his comments were backed by a number of industry peers, like for example the former VP of Business Development at Epic Games, Michael Dowse, publishing director at Baldur's Gate 3 developer Larian, that's again like a really good showing, said that the biggest concern right now revolves around what happens when all that money runs out. That's true. So going back to the comment that he made regarding being subsidized by Microsoft's infinite money, but the problem is that Microsoft doesn't have infinite money. They might be $1 trillion company, but they can't keep constantly subsidizing things over and over again unless they have a decent amount of money coming in. But the thing is that there's a lot of moving parts to Microsoft. There's too many different bits and pieces all over the place. They have so many departments, it's not even funny. So I can't imagine how all of this is going to shake up. But yeah, it's worth noting Baldur's Gate 3 has not launched in Game Pass or PlayStation Plus, and it bloody well deserves not to be because it's a very, very good game. Cole Antonio then ridiculed Microsoft's insistence that launching games into Game Pass did not impact sales, only to later admit the contrary. Wait, hold on, what? Microsoft admits Game Pass cannibalizes sales? Hold on, when was this? Oh, it was in February 2023. I think I might have actually made a video on this way back when. Oh, and this is all part of when they tried to buy Activision Blizzard. Yeah, there we go. And it's embedded within the 277-page document was a short paragraph revealing that Microsoft had submitted an internal analysis to the government body that shows a redacted percentage decline in base game sales 12 months following their addition on Game Pass. Oh, that's crazy. So there's no excuse for anyone to be supporting Game Pass at this point. If you support Game Pass, I don't know what the hell's wrong with you, man. Like, you gotta have some very, very special disorder that affects people mentally if you think that, like, Game Pass is a good thing. Dowse, the dude from Epic Games, if I remember right, responded to say he prefers the Sony way of doing things. Sony's PlayStation Plus policy to keep first-party games off the service at launch, only adding them sometime later. That's why you won't see this year's Sony's Ghost of Yotei launch straight into PS Plus. You will see Call of Duty Black Ops 7 as a day one Game Pass launch. The economics never made sense, but at the same time, I do recognize that for smaller teams with new or riskier IPs, it helped de-risk. Dowse said, much prefer Sony's lifecycle management strategy. Yeah, the only way Game Pass can coexist without hurting everyone is for the back catalog. That is so damn true. I cannot agree enough with a lot of the statements being made in this article, but also the fact that I've kind of shared my own thoughts about how I've just genuinely hated Game Pass from the very beginning, and I do genuinely believe that there is quite literally no reason for this service to have ever existed from the very beginning, or for it to be praised as much as it has. But with all of that being said, however, let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I really do think that Game Pass is the worst, and I'd rather you subscribe to my channel than subscribe to Game Pass, because hey, at least it doesn't cost you anything. But with all of that being said, however, like the video if you liked it. I think I already said that. Subscribe to the channel. Yep, I already said that. Yeah, I upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.